Welcome back on in, everybody, to the latest episode of the Strictly NFL podcast. Like always, I'm your host, Constantine. Desmond is not on this episode today. Um, some busy stuff going on with it being Easter weekend and like all that type of shit. Knicks playoffs today. Big day for the program over here. Um, but with all that being said, this is the Strictly NFL podcast. We have the NFL draft coming up this Thursday, right? Pretty weird. I thought optimally maybe go Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but it's going on Thursday, which sucks because I'm an old person now and I have to wake up for work in the morning. That shit really sucks. What are your thoughts on waking up early for work in the morning?
You just gotta get used to it, and you move on with life. Just becomes part of your daily routine.
This is a part of my villain arc. I've been waking up at 6 every morning. It's fucking the worst thing that ever happened to me. But before we get into all the good stuff, draft talk, strategy talk for the Jets and Giants, which we'll be covering today, I do want to remind everybody listening that the Strickland has a Patreon, $4.50 per month subscription gets you access to our eternal gratitude and your name on the thank you page of the about section of the Strickland. $9 a month gets you access to a bunch of different cool stuff like Friday edition of Pod Strickland, access to the Knicks mailbag, access to our Discord, which is always the place to be, whether it's news dropping during the games, post game, for all that type of stuff. It's always active in there, and you could talk about literally whatever the fuck you want to. Like, there's basketball, football, wrestling, baseball, miscellaneous shit, like where you can go to eat in New York City and like a bunch of that type of stuff. But further tiers are $13, $21, $43, and etc. A bunch of cool different perks in each tier. Without further ado, like I said, we have the draft coming up. We have Bills. How do I introduce you, Shwin? Bills super fan?
Just
is that what you are for the Bills?
Super fan.
Just fan.
Yes,
all right.
I'm not a super fan,
but
just a fan.
I do have Shwin with me to discuss how the Giants should be attacking this draft at number 3 overall. They probably have the first inflection point in this draft. It's assumed Cam Ward is number 1 to the Titans. I'm pretty sure that's all but locked up. Travis Hunter could be pick at 2, probably is the pick at 2, but you don't know exactly if Cleveland's been smoke screening. They do need a quarterback. Stefanski hasn't had his guy there, even though they paid Deshaun. They haven't found the guy, I should say, rather than not had their guy. They need to clean up their books, so having a rookie quarterback on a rookie scale deal could help them get over that hump that they created for themselves with Deshaun Watson's contract. There's a lot of ways they could go. I think they're going to go Travis. Widely speculated that they will go Travis, and that leaves the Giants at 3. Everybody's saying Abdul Carter. Some are saying Shedeur Sanders. I think this is where we could really get this show flowing because I feel strongly about this, and I think the move for the Giants is to trade down. Now, it's easier said than done because you always need a second person there to trade down with, right? Somebody has to be willing to move up. But I don't think they should be trying to squeeze out everything they can from this trade down if it's not there. I think whatever surplus you get from trading down is a big positive. And I've said this privately to you. I've said this privately to a couple others. I don't think Abdul Carter is worth the number 3 pick in a typical draft. I think in a typical draft, he's probably somewhere in the back of like 8, 9, 10, around there. Maybe he slips into the early 10 to 20s, like 11 to 13 range. But number 3 pick for a guy who is 6'3", 245, a little bit slight in the shoulders, inexperienced, not great against the run, and a bit limited in terms of his bag as a pass rusher. I think we're crowning him as a prospect way too early, and we're doing it because there's been guys before him who succeeded in his mold, and that doesn't necessarily mean that he will also do so. So the Micah Parsons comps, there's a bit of a talk with like, oh, well, Azeez Ojulari was good in spurts over here, and he was 6'2", so who cares if Abdul Carter is 6'3"? Abdul is much like Azeez in the fact that he can't stay on the field too often because he's going to get abused in the run game. Now, that was proven over 3 or 4 years for Aziz over here in New York. Is that going to be the case for Abdul Carter? I don't want to pencil him in as somebody who can't stop the run, but it is a worry. It is a negative on the draft profile. And I think if you're the Giants who are trying to hit a home run in the first round, the home run might not be staring at you in the face. You might have to do some work to get there. And I think the work is trading down maybe to so the Raiders are at 6. Maybe you could talk to them about trading down, and they'll come for Shador or somebody like that. But that is the hard part, finding something to tangle with you on this. I don't think the hard part is the decision. I think they should be clearly looking to trade down.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's still a chance to me that the Browns take Abdul Carter. I mean, it's kind of weird because at first it was like a given that they were going to take Abdul Carter, and then all of a sudden it was like, actually, everything's trending that they're going to take Travis Hunter. Maybe, like you said, maybe that's a smokescreen. We'll see what it is. Assuming they do take Travis Hunter, which, by the way, if they don't take Travis Hunter, the Giants should not trade this pick. They should run up to the fucking board and draft Travis Hunter and be very, very thankful. I will be thankful that it seems, no matter what, that Travis Hunter will not be going to the New England Patriots, which makes me happy. All that being said, yeah, I think if the Giants are then faced with like Abdul Carter or Shador Sanders or whatever they think is available at 3 or that they think is the best thing at 3, yeah, I would look to trade down. I mean, I don't think that Shador to me is kind of weird. Where like there are things I actually do like about him. Like there's kind of a lot of talk about, he takes a lot of hits that he shouldn't take, tries to extend plays that don't need to be extended or shouldn't be extended. And those are fair criticisms. But what I think is actually good about that is that it shows toughness. Like it shows that he's willing to try to make plays and that he's not deterred by the possibility of taking hits. I think it's always easier to dial that back than it is to turn it up. So that's good to me. The arm strength is obviously, to me, it's never popped when I've watched him play. I don't think it's bad, but I don't think it's great. I do think it can get better, and that's something that we've seen a lot of quarterbacks improve early in their careers in the NFL. So I wouldn't put that past him either. The main concern for me is I just don't think he's ever going to be that mobile. And then I also don't know, with the lack of mobility, is he ever going to play or be able to make plays, a lot of like explosive plays, not just out of structure, but off platform more than out of structure. So those are the main concerns for me. If I'm the Giants and I want him, like, I still think you're going to be able to get him in a trade down situation. And to your point, like, I don't think Vegas is taking a quarterback. They traded for Geno Smith. They paid him a bunch of money. Yeah, they traded for Geno. So, like, they paid him a bunch of money. They traded a 3rd round pick in that deal, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So, like, they already put draft capital on the table for a quarterback. They're trying to win now, trying to be competitive now anyway. And so I just don't know that they're ever going to be in a situation where, yeah, I don't know if they're going to ever be in a situation where, that they want to double up on giving up capital to move up to get a Shador, or if I'm them, maybe you like Jackson Dart more, maybe you like whoever more. There's a bunch of quarterbacks that have seemingly moved up. I mean, I've never watched him play football, to be quite honest, but Tyler Shove? I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I'll just call it that.
Tyler Shuck.
What is it? Tyler Shuck?
Shuck.
That's crazy.
Shuck. Believe it or not.
Yeah. That's crazy. He's a guy that people have talked about that they like. I don't know. I don't. To me, after Cam Ward, I wouldn't take any of these guys in the top 15 probably. But, and here's the caveat: QB is always the position that is like most likely to move up and kind of get that additional. Yeah, just get like bumped up the board because of the value of the position. Yeah. So, if I'm the Giants, and I do think they like Shador, I don't think that's off. I don't think they like him enough to take him at 3. I think it would be unwise to take him at 3, to your point, especially because I do think there will be teams like I think Carolina is a team that could look at Abdul Carter and be like, yeah, you know what? If we can get him, and they desperately need anything on that defensive line. So like Carolina's a team I'd look at as a potential trade back destination. I think Chicago is a team that you could look at. So Carolina's at 8. If you can trade up or trade down with them rather. After New Orleans, these are the teams that are picking. All right. So New Orleans is at 9, by the way. So my point is, like, if you trade with Carolina, you know Shador is going to be on the board still at 8. But even if you traded back to Chicago, New Orleans could maybe they don't like Shador, maybe they like Jackson Dartmoor, whatever. If you get that intel that they don't really care about Shador, then it opens up a lot more for you because you could trade back to Carolina at 8. And then these are teams that you still would have a chance to trade back with for more capital, and potentially, and then still get Shador, right? Because this is the order after Carolina and New Orleans. Chicago, 10, no shot. San Francisco, 11, very little chance. Dallas, 12, no way. Miami, 13, no way. Indianapolis, 14, not a chance in hell. Atlanta, 15, not a chance. Arizona at 16, nope. Cincinnati, 17, laughing my ass off. Seattle, 18, definitely not. Tampa, 19, no. Denver, 20, no. Pittsburgh's the next team at 21. So after New Orleans, I don't think there's a single one of these teams that is going to take a quarterback. So if you can trade back with the Bears, and then you kind of know, and then let's say you're like, it gets closer to your pick, whatever, you kind of get the idea here that New Orleans isn't going to draft Shador anyway. If that's the guy you want, you still have the opportunity to trade back maybe another time, maybe twice even, collect a little more capital, and take Shador. Or you can just stick at 8 and take whatever, the best player available, or however you want to play it. But the key to me is, they should trade back from 3, and they should have opportunities to do so. It's just about them, actually doing it.
So what we're gonna have to manage is there is the scenario where the Steelers trade up, right? That can happen.
Right.
They have picks, right? They have picks next year that they can throw. You
It's
probably
worth mentioning
don't
though
want
they
to
traded out their second. They traded out their second for DK Metcalf.
Yeah, they did. So you probably don't want to drop to like 20 and just be like, all right, the Steelers are 1 pick behind us. We'll snipe them, whatever. Unless you've traded, I don't see how this would really happen, but unless you've somewhat traded out of the first round from 3, and then you get to pick 17, pick 18, and the Steelers still haven't moved up, and then okay, they can only move up these 2 slots, and then you jump to the highest one available at that time, right? That's how you would kind of manage the board if they're not trying to move up. But I assume for all intents and purposes, the Giants will be trading down to somewhere in that 8, 9, 10 area. I assume the Steelers would not mind moving up 5, 6, 7 slots for either Shador or maybe Milroe, who they've been attached to a lot throughout this process. There was some reports about the Giants being in on Milroe too. And there's a bit of a connection. Like Dable worked at Alabama a little while ago. He probably is the best runner in this class. Not probably, actually. He's, even if he played running back, he'd probably be the second best rusher in this class, which is fucking crazy. But Dable has a lot of experience coaching an athlete like this. And granted, he's not 6'5" like Josh Allen, but he is 6'2". He's probably faster. He is shiftier. And I've really had a hard time ranking Milroe when it comes to looking at quarterbacks in this class. But I want to put him at quarterback too. And people can get on me about that. I just really don't love Jackson Dart as a prospect. I don't love Shador as a prospect. I don't think either of them bring an elite trait that they can bank on day one in the NFL to survive if they're thrust into competition. Shador, there's a lot of stuff there with Shador, and I feel like I have to lead with the positives because I'll get crucified if I don't by a lot of his fans. Incredibly tough. I think that the leadership stuff is honestly crap. I think he's a very good leader. I think guys always play hard for him. I think that he's.
I don't even understand the leadership stuff. I think that's just like that to me. That's like super racially coded language.
And I think he gets dinged because his dad is the coach. So I think they're like, oh, you're playing because of your dad, and then your dad's there, so you got to put on a brave face and act like you're the fucking responsible one and all that shit. I think he's just a good dude. I think he's just a really good guy.
Yeah.
He had a lapse with the Nebraska quote after the game. Everybody's had a lapse at 22 years old after they got shafted in a fucking.
What did he say?
He was talking about how they really struggled blocking, and he kind of pinned it on the line.
So, yeah, I'll tell you exactly why I don't care about that shit. You can find quotes from Patrick Mahomes, the great, fucking next GOAT of the league, after they got destroyed by the Bucs in the Super Bowl, where he basically just shit on the offensive line. Like, you can find quotes. You can fucking go watch. You can see clips of Peyton Manning and Tom Brady going to the sideline and screaming at their offensive line. Like, that stuff doesn't matter, man. Like it slips. Sometimes it happens, and you got to judge the guy on a totality of his work. And honestly, you know what? If an offensive line feels like you're trying to throw them under the bus, you'll see that on tape. Because what's going to happen is they're going to stop blocking for you. And that didn't happen. Like, they sucked. Their offensive line wasn't good. But I never watched a game and thought, like, yeah, these guys don't give a shit about Shedeur.
There's also never been a time where somebody throws the line under the bus and it's unwarranted. Like, if you are in the frame of mind where you even get on the verge of throwing your line under the bus, under the bus, it's probably because they shit themselves so fucking bad that you almost died out there. That's probably what it was, and that's how it played out in Nebraska. And I'm sure he's thinking to himself, okay, we're playing Nebraska. I'm probably going to put a bunch of stats. I'm going to look great. Draft stock's going up after this game. And then when that doesn't happen, right, and you're not only playing for yourself, but you're playing for Travis Hunter, you're playing for all these 4 receivers that they have in this draft, you're going to be a little pissed, right? They lost that game, I believe. I think they were in the top 25 and then fell out after that game. So it's a lot of shit writing on that game, right? And this is competitive sports. They know that they're not playing for their academics, most of them. They know they're playing to go to the NFL. And like you said, it slips out. So I think that's severely overblown. What I think is preposterous, though, is for some reason people think that he can like manage the rush. I've never seen him be a great mover in the pocket. I've never seen him be able to turn the corner on D1 college athletes besides Jackson State. So the last 2 seasons, he hasn't been really breaking the pocket, making too many plays, unless it's a design thing and he gets out of the pocket before the rushers get upfield. I think he isn't really great at stepping up and then taking off. If he's going to step up, he's usually delivering the ball, which isn't a bad thing. But if you're stepping up, you have to be a threat to take off, to draw in the linebacker, and then be able to throw over their head. I don't think at the NFL level he'll be enough of a threat to do that. So you just really look at Shedeur, and I think what you see is a decently high floor, decently low ceiling. And I don't think there's much of a secret as to what you're going to get when you draft him. It might be Andy Dalton. It might be a little bit of a weaker arm Baker Mayfield. But I don't think there's much variability. You're probably signing up for 7 to 8 to 9 wins a season. 9 wins on the high end if you have a really talented team. 7 wins on the short end if you have a less talented team. And I just don't think that Giants fans take that into account when they talk about him. They just see quarterback. If he hits, you draft him. There's so much more that goes into this. If you're going to draft somebody, you have to believe in them. Maybe the Giants believe in him. That's fine. I'm not here to discuss that. But I will discuss the ceiling of this team if you do draft him. Because physically, the Giants are not dominant. Kayvon is a bit of a slimmer edge. Brian Burns, a bit of a slimmer edge. Their D tackles, not particularly big outside of Dex. They got a little bit bigger in the secondary with the Debo. Deonte Banks is physical, but he hasn't put it all together yet. The linebackers are fast, but not super physical. They won't really knock you out if they hit you coming downfield. The line is not a great physical run blocking unit. Tyrone Tracy is big, but he's not somebody who will plow over you for an extra 3 yards every single rep. Malik Neighbors, great talent, not a physically dominant receiver, right? So I don't think there's enough physical dominance on this team to drop in a guy who's so physically limited like Shedeur and expect immediate results. There has to be a point where in football you are smacking the other guy in front of you in the mouth. I don't think that's what happens when you drop Shador onto this team. I do think that if you were to take somebody like Milroe, sit him for a season, that changes you because all of a sudden you have a quarterback who is physically dominant in every single way, arm, body, speed. He has to catch up with his mind and accuracy and all that type of stuff. But that Clay mold is there, and we kind of went into this last season with or last off season when I was talking about how much I love Drake May, how much I love Caleb because there's so much clay to mold. I'm not into the low ceiling quarterback picks. I'm just not because you can go out and sign them like we see this offseason for the Giants for $14 million and get Russell Wilson. You can sign Derek Carr next year, who will probably be just as low ceiling as Shador is, and it'll probably be for about 15 million. So I prefer to stay out of the Shador business.